Greenwich was dressed in white frost when I returned, though it wasn't a homecoming. The Hartman estate loomed under the sheen of wealth, polished columns, imported fir trees, security at every gate. The charity gala had drawn in political donors, billionaires, and faces you only ever see in magazines. My invitation? A text from my mother. You'll assist the staff. Consider it good PR, wear black. I arrived before the first Rolls-Royce pulled in, slipped in through the back entrance, and joined the catering team. I had just clocked out of my waitress shift, $1.42 in tips, and a blister forming on my heel. When Marjorie Hartman spotted me carrying a tray of shrimp cocktails, she smiled thinly and gestured toward the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, champagne flute in hand, "tonight's help includes a very special guest, our daughter, Avellini, who's kindly volunteered her time tonight through her restaurant job." A chuckle rippled across the ballroom. Clarissa, ever the documentarian, captured the moment with a flourish of her phone camera. And Richard, my father, didn't even look up. I held the tray steady, shoulders straight, eyes locked just above the crowd's heads. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because that's what ghosts do when they haunt places that once belonged to them. Have you ever stood in a room full of people who looked at you like a ghost? The gala faded behind me like a dream you wake from in a cold sweat. I slipped out through the side corridor, past the oil portraits and trophy-line shelves, and caught my breath by the grand staircase. That's when I saw it, a new family portrait. Clarissa glowing in the center. Richard and Marjorie seated elegantly beside her. There was space, clearly designed for a fourth, but I wasn't in it. When I reached the top of the stairs, the doorknob to my old room wouldn't budge. Locked. Bolted. "Avellini!" A whisper echoed from the shadows. Eleanor, our old housekeeper, stepped out, face worn by decades of quiet loyalty. "Check the driveway," she said, eyes soft. Now. I ran. There they were. 2 garbage bags. My life in plastic by the curb. Eleanor watched as I stood frozen, then handed me a coat from her own back seat. "They threw you out like yesterday's fashion," she said. "But remember, darling, sometimes trash becomes treasure." Richard's voice sliced the night. "You'll understand someday. It's better this way." I didn't answer, just turned, $42 in my pocket, the snow soaking through my sneakers. Eleanor's place smelled like cinnamon and dust. She made tea without asking questions, left the room when I didn't speak. Later, when I peeled off my coat, she handed me something wrapped in a grocery receipt. "A lottery ticket," she shrugged. "Bought it last week. Lucky you showed up before it expired." Have you ever been cut out so cleanly it felt like you never existed? I sat cross-legged on her couch, the ticket trembling in my hand. Scratch. 7, 7, 7. Matching numbers. Again, again. The screen blinked. The digits aligned. $50 million. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the snow. "Well," I whispered happy birthday to me. There was no birthday cake this year. Not like those childhood years when Clarissa's parties doubled as mine. No candles for me. Just a silent revelation. Control. I wasn't thinking of cars or vacations or revenge. I was thinking of leverage. That night, I emailed Graham Boss. I'd heard of him through whispers in corporate circles. Discreet, ruthless, silent as a signature on the right document. No one knows. Not even Eleanor. I told him when we spoke. I want it all shielded. I want holding companies. Shells. Silence. They erase me. I said, but I'll be the one who decides how this story ends. If you had one chance to take your life back without anyone knowing, would you do it? I left Eleanor a note on her fridge the next morning. Thank you for giving me warmth when the world froze me out. Then I was gone. Rented a studio apartment downtown under the name Eliza Monroe. It wasn't much, just 4 walls, a microwave, and a view of the train tracks, but it was mine. The first safe place in years. On my desk, a file labeled Reconstruction Plan. Inside, documents Graham had sent me. Deeds, contracts, names of distressed assets with Hartman's signatures, still drying. One by one, I'd buy them out. Quietly, legally, precisely. I turned on the TV. There they were again. Richard, Marjorie, and Clarissa, dazzling at another gala, full of polished smiles and hollow speeches. They think they got rid of me, I murmured. But I've just begun. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed. A new message, notification blinked. Marcus Whitmore has accepted your invitation to meet. The invitation arrived in cream cardstock, gold embossed lettering curling around my name like ivy. Avellini Hart. An invitation to my own birthday gala, hosted at the Hartman estate. Not a word about the disownment, not a whisper of apology. Just a date, a dress code, and a reminder to RSVP. They wanted a performance. I would give them one. Greenwich, Connecticut, in February was a study in cold perfection. The estate glittered again, this time under golden chandeliers instead of holiday frost. Guests sipped from tall flutes. Photographers loitered at the marble steps. The air smelled of jasmine and pretense. Thank you for being here, Marjorie told me, her smile polished like silverware. We're so proud of Clarissa, and Avellini, of course. Clarissa leaned in close enough to graze my cheek. Smile, little sister. They'd thrown me a birthday party while sharpening their knives behind the curtain. I smiled anyway. The setting was pristine, almost antiseptic, as if emotion itself had been scrubbed clean from the air. Even the candles on the birthday cake flickered, too politely, too rehearsed. But my game was different now. Unknown to them, the day before the spectacle, I had wired a significant portion of my lottery winnings, filtered through Graham Voss's crafted network of shell corporations, into acquisitions that bore their names. Properties, debts, silent stakes. While they rehearsed their toast, I purchased their stage. What would you do if your birthday was your own trial? The music quieted just after the champagne was poured. Richard stood, tapping a spoon against his glass. He cleared his throat. We believe in clarity and legacy, he began. Tonight, we mark not just a birthday, but a new chapter. He slid an envelope toward me across the table. No bow, no card, just paper. Inside a single page, notarized legal cruel. My name, a declaration. Disowned. Clarissa raised her phone. The click of her camera was louder than the string quartet behind her. Laughter scattered through the crowd. Nervous, gleeful, complicit. This can't be happening, I thought. But it was. I stood, straightened my blazer. Thank you, I said, voice level, for raising me into strength. Then I left. No shouting, no pleading, not even a backward glance. Outside, the snow hadn't stopped. Under the lamplight, I saw myself in the window of a parked car. Cheeks flushed, shoulders square, eyes dry. They gave me a paper cut, but I'd already drawn blood. My phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. You saw the moment they removed you. Now show them you never needed that place. Have you ever been handed a gag order, then used it as your launch pad? By the time I got back to my apartment, the video was everywhere. Hartman Fall trended. Millions had seen my disownment unfold like a reality show finale. Opinions flew. Outrage, amusement, pity. They turned my humiliation into a show. Fine. I'd give them a plot twist. The next day, I received a message from Tessa Cole, an investigative reporter with a reputation for exposing curated illusions. I want your story, she wrote. Let's expose the ones who pretend. She was sharp, but I had sharper edges now. Yes, I replied, but on my terms. I filmed a short statement, posted it at noon. On a white background, in a gray blazer, I looked directly into the lens. They erased me, I said, but I rewrote this chapter. The post exploded. I wasn't loud. I didn't need to be. They tried to kill my identity in public, so I resurrected it the same way. When you decide to forgive, Tessa said in a follow-up call, make sure it's on your own terms. Forgiveness? That wasn't the point. The point was evolution. Shock became anger. Anger became strategy. I wasn't invited back. Good, because I was already moving into the room they never prepared for me. The Grand Legacy Gala sparkled like a constellation stitched across the Manhattan skyline. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with opulence. Crystal chandeliers, silk-draped tables, polished marble floors that reflected back the curated smiles of the elite. But the most striking presence that night wasn't the decor. It was me, Avalini Hart, keynote speaker, honoree of the year. I stepped out in a minimalist white gown that whispered elegance with every movement, hair pinned back, voice steady, chin lifted, not out of pride but purpose. The crowd didn't recognize me at first. Maybe they weren't meant to. Backstage, Noah Reeves adjusted my mic, fingers brushing mine. Tonight, he said, you rewrite what they tried to erase. He didn't need to say their names. They were out there. Marjorie, Richard, Clarissa, glittering at their table, unaware that the woman they'd discarded was about to take center stage. I walked out to the podium. Good evening, I began. It's not every day you're asked to speak at a place you were never supposed to belong. Soft laughter. Some nods. I continued. 3 years ago, I was erased from my family's story. But I learned something. When people stop writing you in, write yourself a better ending. A quiet hush settled. I'm honored tonight, not just as a guest, but as the founder of the Heart Reclamation Foundation. We support women who've been disowned, displaced, dismissed. There were gasps, even some scattered applause. But I wasn't finished. All of you remember this. The screens around the ballroom lit up. The video, my birthday, that envelope, Clarissa's smirk. I paused the frame on my tear-streaked face. This girl, I said, pointing to the image. She died that day. I'm what rose from her ashes. The room stood still for a moment. Then, like a slow tide, people began to rise, standing, clapping, not just for me, but for what I represented. Have you ever felt reborn the moment you stopped apologizing? The applause still echoed as I stepped off stage. The next morning, headlines blazed. Heiress disowned, now funds her own empire. Tessa Cole's exclusive interview pulled no punches. She laid out the contrast, what I'd lost, what I'd built, who I'd become. Then came the letter, handwritten, trembled ink, from Marjorie. I'm ill. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I read it on camera. I wish her a long, healthy life, I said, folding it once, so she can watch me thrive without ever needing her love. Richard Hartman's firm began to crumble days later. Investors pulled out. Graham filed disclosures, linking their assets to falsified statements. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. Clarissa's agency dropped her like she was radioactive. The video resurfaced. Her laughter echoed in boardrooms and comment sections. And I kept my grace in public. But in private, I allowed myself one long breath. The kind you take after holding it for a decade. They burned the bridge. I built a better one and charged them for crossing. Should we always forgive? Or is walking away the stronger closure? Weeks later, I sat on a national talk show set, lights bright but soft enough to make you feel safe. What was the turning point? The host asked. When I stopped needing their version of love, I answered simply. Then I turned to the audience. This all began with one lottery ticket, I said. But my real luck? It was meeting someone who gave me warmth when the world froze me out. I gestured to the front row. Eleanor smiled through tears. The show ended with applause, but something else waited backstage. A message from Jonas Keene. I wish I'd stood up for you. Let me help now. I typed back slowly. Not everyone gets a second chance, but you earned yours. Outside the studio, reporters gathered like moths. Flashes sparked. Avellini, what's next for you? I paused, smiled. I think it's time I wrote the next story on my own terms.